All right, Planning Commission will resume. Time now is 5 minutes of 9. The item before us now is PC 06-13, a resolution of the Mayor and City Council of the City of North Miami, Florida, authorizing the issuance of a conditional use permit for the conceptual master development plan for Tract A of Biscayne Landing Plat in accordance with Article 3, Section 3-405 of the City of North Miami Code of Ordinances, Land Development Regulations, providing for an effective date and for all other purposes. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record again, Tanya Wilson Sejour with the Community Planning and Development Department. Staff is recommending that the Planning Commission recommends approval and issuance of the proposed conditional use permit for the conceptual master development plan with conditions for the Biscayne Landing Plat, that's a subject development, in accordance with Article 3, Section 3-405 of the city's land development regulations, and forward said resolution to City Council for final consideration. Just to provide some background on the purpose and intent of this application, the subject development is a mixed-use project proposed for master plan development on a 184-acre city-owned site and former landfill located on the southeastern quadrant of the intersection of Northeast 151st Street and Biscayne Boulevard. The site is currently zoned planned development with a land use of mixed-use medium, which allows 40 dwelling units per acre and is also located within the boundaries of the city's Regional Activity Center. The RAC is a state-designated district intended to encourage regionally significant developments that promote mass transit, bicycle paths, and pedestrian connectivity within the vicinity of Florida International University, Oletah State Park, and the Biscayne Boulevard corridor, in order to create an attractive, functionally integrated community that provides living, working, shopping, educational, and recreational opportunities. On May 23rd, 2012, the Mayor and Council adopted Resolution R-2012-67, authorizing the execution of a lease agreement between the city and Oletah Partners, LLC, the developer, for the master development of the Biscayne Landing Plat. And as such, the agreement calls for a conceptual master plan, which identifies all the proposed phases and uses of the development, which includes a mix of 4,315 residential units, 150 hotel rooms, 750,000 square feet of retail use, 9,880 square feet restaurant, 10,000 square feet community center, 760 square feet auto mall, 7.2 acre active park, and 43 acres of open space. And additionally, consistent with the zoning requirements in Section 3-401B of the city's LDR, all planned developments are required to obtain a conditional use permit to establish guidelines and development standards as established by council for the implementation of a proposed development consistent with the terms of the executed lease agreement and the LDRs. As such, in January of 2013, the developer filed an application with the Community Planning and Development Department requesting approval of the conceptual master development plan, which is attached to your staff report as Exhibit A, by virtue of the issuance of a conditional use permit, Attachment B, for the Biscayne Landing site. Based on staff's analysis, we're required for all conditional use permits that it be consistent with Article 3, Section 3-405 of the Land Development Regulations. Staff has provided analysis in the staff report, an extensive analysis, which outlines the proposed request and the fact that it's consistent with the requirement in Article 3 of the Land Development Regs. Staff is recommending approval of the proposed conditional use permit master development plan along with the conditions listed in the staff report. I would ask the chair at this time if you'd like me to read all the conditions into record or just make reference to them as a part of my presentation.
Since this is a televised meeting, I think it's appropriate to read them into the record.
Okay, condition number 1, the applicant shall comply with all conditions listed in Exhibit B of the approved conditional use permit. Condition 2, the applicant shall coordinate with the City Attorney's Office to amend the lease agreement dated May 29, 2012 to replace Exhibit B with the approved conceptual master development plan. Condition 3, the applicant shall submit the draft development agreement to the Community Planning and Development Department outlining commitment to capital facilities planning to ensure the provision of adequate public facilities for the master development. Condition 4, submit an amended conditional use permit application and precise plan for each phase of development in accordance with the city's zoning regulations. Condition 5, coordinate with the City of North Miami Beach regarding gaining access via the proposed extension of Northeast 156th Street to Biscayne Boulevard, since that portion lies inside the jurisdiction of the City of North Miami Beach. Condition 6, comply with utility recommendations of the city engineer based on comments provided in the DRC report dated January 8th, 2013 to ensure water and sewer lines are appropriately sized. Condition 7, bonding of financial agreement. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall deposit with the Department of Community Planning and Development a cash bond, surety bond, or time deposit bond in an amount equal to 110% of the estimated cost of any and all improvements which may be required within dedicated rights-of-way and or public facility easements to ensure the placing thereof. Condition 8, the developer will pay applicable impact fees to the city prior to the issuance of building permits for each phase of the development. Condition 9, the applicant agrees to provide a supplemental traffic analysis of Northeast 151st Street and Biscayne Boulevard from 1:15 p.m. to 3:15 p.m. to accurately assess the currently failing intersection and work with all partners involved, that is FIU, the county, Florida Department of Transportation, Miami-Dade School District and City, to develop a proportionate fair share solution to resolve or alleviate the failing intersection. Condition 10 says a demand management program will be developed. The applicant shall submit a transportation demand management program to the city for each vertical construction phase of the development. Said plan to be submitted also to Miami-Dade Transit and Florida Department of Transportation in accordance with policy 1.14 and 1.2.6 of the city's comprehensive plan. The TDM program shall be appropriate to the size, scale, and location of proposed development and shall demonstrate that every effort will be made to ensure the proposed transportation strategies will reduce the traffic impacts anticipated from the proposed development. The DMP, Demand Management Program, shall propose multimodal transportation alternatives such as connected sidewalks, bicycle parking, transit facilities for bus or shuttle stops, and carpooling to alleviate the added traffic anticipated from the site. Condition 11, prior to submittal of each conditional use permit for individual phases, the applicant shall provide an updated traffic analysis to the Director of Community Planning and Development with proposed mitigation strategies to alleviate the anticipated impacts. Condition number 12, traffic impact analysis. The applicant must comply with the recommendations provided by the city's contract engineers with Kittleson and Associates as dated on January 22nd, 2013. Condition 13, within 30 days of council adoption, work with city staff to establish a brownfield program and explore possible tax credit opportunities that may be available. Condition 14, for the school impact report, the applicant shall work with the city and with the Miami-Dade County School District to obtain an updated report based on the new unit mix and overall unit count, since classroom seats and area schools are reserved based on a given student generation number. And the final condition, condition number 15, comply with all requirements stipulated in the city's executed lease agreements. This concludes staff's report and presentation at this time. I know the applicant is available to provide a formal presentation on the project at this time.
All right, at this time, then the Planning Commission will move forward so that we can observe the presentation of the applicant. All right.
Take my book in case I want to take some notes. My short-term memory, but it used to be not now.
Okay, well, good evening to the chair, commissioners, and the audience. My name's Herb Tillman. I'm the executive officer for Olita Partners, a tenant at Biscayne Landing, and the developer. For this presentation, we brought a bit of extra theatrics, I guess you might say, but we feel it's important enough to accurately represent as much as we can to the audience, and I'm kind of glad to see that the audience is as large as this is. We also brought along our master plan architects, SWA out of Houston. Their representative here is Todd Meyer. He will take you through the package that you've seen, and I want to take this opportunity to show it to the rest of the people in the room. We also brought along our civil design consultants, Atkins Group, represented by Victor Herrera and Rakib back there. We brought Rakib is the traffic engineer. I'm sure there's going to be a question or two about traffic. You heard several references to it in the conditions of approval that was recommended by staff. And I also want to take this moment to make it crystal clear. We've reviewed each one of these conditions and worked with staff in the creation of these conditions. We have no exception to any of the conditions and agreed to perform every one of those throughout, should we be approved to go through council. In addition to that, I have some other members of my staff if we have any questions regarding environmental, architectural intent, but I want to keep it at that. I would like to caution the group that we would prefer to remain within the confines of the intent of this evening, which is to obtain conditional use approval. From that time on, we will then approach the members of the community and show them what our intentions are. We intend to, and have discussed this with some of the other parties that, as far as the traffic issues go, we will partner with Florida International University, and I believe I saw a representative here earlier in the evening of them, as well as the city of North Miami, the school district, and all the other parties that staff have recommended to produce a cohesive effort to approach the State Department of Transportation and Miami-Dade County to help us with the improvement of one major intersection that has not been improved since the county has built a K-8, David Lawrence K-8 on 151st Street. There's been no improvements performed since the county has built the Alonzo Mourning High School, and there's been no improvements performed since the state institution to the east of us, Florida International, has increased their student enrollment significantly. So we feel like we're going to need some partnership there to approach these two entities and have them fix what we perceive to be a problematic intersection that currently has no load imposed on it by our development, so that when we contribute our portion at the end of the day, that intersection works well for everything that we're about to show you tonight. With that, I want to turn it over to Todd Meyer. Todd, please carry.
Thanks, Herb. Again, my name is Todd Meyer. We are a planning and design firm and by the name of SWA Group. Just want to make it clear that we're consultants. We don't represent any financial interest or equity stake in the project. Just want to take you through the document that you've previewed, and this is the table of contents that you're familiar with. I think everyone's familiar with the location. It's Biscayne and 151st on the north end. In this view, north is to your left, and 143rd is the other primary entry off of Biscayne. We know that there's a lot of sensitivity to the context in terms of the existing development, as well as the mangroves and the sensitivity to the environmental sensitivity as well. I'm not going to read this to you, but as many of you know, it is a former landfill site. It has been, of course, carefully monitored and will continue to be carefully monitored over time. There are many injection well sites and monitoring well sites predominantly around the perimeter of the property to make sure that different kinds of chemicals are not being released into the environment from the landfill. Many of the water bodies that you see on the site were dug that way so that they could be used to grade the site over time as municipal solid waste was brought to the site. The normal process is to dig some of that earth and spread it around. So when the landfill closed many years ago, we resulted with several of these ponds that are on the site, but none of them are naturally occurring. Three basic areas of the site. To the south end is predominantly commercial in a retail format. The center of the site, residential, multifamily residential. And on the north end of the site, an auto mall. In terms of the land uses specifically to the buildings, one of the things that we're also considering, you see in the bottom part, is a select service hotel. We also have a couple of pad sites for restaurants. In addition, there is a 7.2 acre active park that will be dedicated to the city as a part of the development. This is an illustrative plan that just shows what the view might look like when the full build-out occurs. Looking at the retail piece, we have a proposed anchor here, and then inline shops on the east and west side of the property, and we're predominantly leaving the south end of the property open as it backs up to the neighboring residential. On the north end, still commercial uses, but different type. Of course, auto dealers on the north end, preserving what is the existing lake there, reshaping that as it transitions into the residential area in the center, and reutilizing the existing roadway that serves currently the Oaks condominiums. The center of the site, of course, different multifamily product with open space in between, and of course buffer around the edge as required. At the west end, a community center that would be used for the future residents. Just a diagram showing in the black the proposed building footprints. The rest is open space, either surface parking or green open space. And the parking strategy, as you can see in the commercial areas, the retail area predominantly surface parking. With the dealerships, we are proposing some structured parking to accommodate more capacity because the cars in that scenario are the product and we need places to store them. In the center, using structured parking obviously manufactures more land for other uses. These are the different open space categories. As I mentioned, the active park here at the southwest corner, and the buffer along the edge, the setback area, which is also used for detention, stormwater detention and injection, and then of course the open space that's part of the development. These just represent the different parcels within the development. The retail is to be developed all as one parcel, whereas the residential is split into blocks. And a breakdown of what those blocks are. The total site is 184 acres. There's a total of 4,390 residential units, which is just under 24 units to the acre, which is just over half of what's allowed. More parcel, more tabulation. In addition to the residential units, the 150 hotel rooms are calculated by taking half of that number for density purposes. So we have the residential plus the hotel to give us the total number there. And then you see the balance is the commercial and auto square footages. In terms of how it fits into the rack, you'll see that the approved areas are the first column here. The current consumption of what's been built as a part of the rack, and then what our project, Biscayne Landing, consumes here, and then the balance of what is left over. So we're consuming the balance of the residential. We are looking at about 1.3 million square feet on the Auto Mall site. And then just under 700,000 for the commercial, and then of course the residential units below. The first phase is really to build the main boulevard or spine road as it comes through the property. Circulation is obviously a big component with a project of this size, and so we've spent time looking at how pedestrians and bicycles might move through the community. As we know, that will be one of the modes of transportation, and trying to provide a lot of connectivity both east to west and north to south, as well as perimeter trail along the edge through the open space buffer. A couple sections of what some of those pedestrian connections might look like in the retail area. This is one looking down one of the main drives as we come in, and you can see the pedestrian spaces that are in between the parking areas. A little bit larger view of that. In meeting with staff and others, we were encouraged to provide some wider medians with walkways through the retail area to provide a more pleasant and safe passage between the retail stores. From a vehicular access point, again, 143rd and then just off of 151st are the two primary entries, and in red here being the primary spine boulevard, the yellow being the secondary, and then the orange being kind of the smaller access. In the blue, more the service drives to predominantly serve the commercial area. Some of the sections that relate to that, typical street sections coming into the site, the main boulevard in this section. And then some of the other pieces as we're coming through the residential area. And smaller neighborhood streets. And a different form when the boulevard comes up into the residential area and transitions into the buffer. So residential on one side and green space on the other side. And then also, of course, the trail, loop trail on the edge where there are no cars, but we still want to provide pedestrian access and bike access. Just a few shots of what the development might look like. The commercial retail on the south, the residential in the center, and then the auto mall at the north. And these are just a few different shots. This is hovering over the mangroves, looking toward the west. And kind of hovering right over the Oaks condominiums, looking southwest. This is the existing Costco. This is Target. This is the post office, Publix. And the community center next to the Select Service Hotel and the open space connections through the development. In this case, we are showing just diagrammatically on the rooftops of the parking decks. They would not just necessarily be parking, but those would likely be amenity decks with swimming pools and other amenities for the residents. And thank you.
Okay, thank you, Todd. Would the commission prefer to take questions from the seat, or would you like us to put this screen down and we take them from the chair?
On the amenity deck.
First, members of the commission, do you want to have a discussion here, or shall I take down the screen? All right.
Yeah, we have copies.
All right, we'll move ahead and you take down the screen. We'll move back.
Go ahead.
I think we can turn off the slide projector.
Don't like the bright light in your face?
Not at the moment. All right. Does the applicant wish to make additional comments at this point?
No, sir, Chair. Thank you.
All right. At this time, then, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as we do this, remind you, you were earlier sworn, and if there's anyone that was not here earlier, wishes to speak, and has not been sworn as to their testimony, please indicate now by raising their hand. All right. We have, will the city attorney please swear in the audience again to be certain everybody is covered?
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. You may be seated.
All right. Now, at this time, we're going to open the public hearing. I'm certain that there are individuals who would like to address this item. Because of the lateness of the hour, well, try to keep it to 3 minutes and pay attention to what others are saying. Don't be repetitive. Remember, this is practice for the city council. Yes, those of you wishing to speak, move forward so that it's a little bit easier to get to the microphone. You're all welcome. We intend to let everyone have their say.
Good
all
evening.
Right, go
Good
ahead.
evening.
Good evening.
Carol Keys, 12550 Palm Road. Number one, I really didn't get to see or review the planning agenda nor the package till a couple minutes ago, so I really can't speak that well on this issue. But number one, this is a big issue that you're doing. I really think that we should have had maybe a workshop or two with the city that would give us time to digest what's being put in front of us. To throw all of this up now at the Planning Commission without any kind of workshop and time to really see all of this, I think it's a bit premature. That being said, I do have a couple questions. I noticed briefly online that we were going to give 200,000 square feet for an auto mall, and that equates to about 5 acres. And in the proposal that I got to just briefly look at, there's about 11 acres for auto mall. So to me, that's a discrepancy. I don't know what that means. Also, there's a rack. There's 1.5 million. I think it's 1.5 million acres of industrial, and it says 1.3 million have been used. Is the auto mall considered commercial or industrial? It's a question, because I don't think there's enough possibly left for what they're planning. Definitely not 11 acres. Lastly, just on what we saw tonight on the presentation, I believe that if that presentation had been made before we entered into the agreement, that this would never have been accepted. This is not what was presented to the people a year or two ago. We were presented with an upscale shopping center, a little bit of residential in the back, an ACLF, a hotel on the front corner. This does not come close. And those apartment buildings, to me, look like tenements in New York City. High rises. I don't know how you're going to have pools. It is just an abomination of those high rises in the middle of that proposal. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next.
Good evening, Carol Prager.
State your address, please.
2509 Northeast, 135 Street, Arch Creek East. I'm here this evening primarily because we had an issue on your agenda that concerned my neighborhood. But golly gee, aren't I glad I was here tonight. This was an assault on my sensibilities. I can't imagine that anybody is entertaining this proposal. First of all, if anybody knows anything about retail, what you're presented here tonight is a 20th century vision about retail. 21st century, we want some vision here. Brick and mortar is not what's happening. Car dealerships at the entrance to what was supposed to be the most beautiful development that this city had ever imagined. 190 acres of prime real estate east of Biscayne Boulevard, and they're proposing to put car lots. And I agree with with Carol Keyes. Those buildings look like tenement housings. Oh my God, I can't even believe that that's even being presented here tonight. And you know, they're putting the cart before the horse. I think if even a fraction of the public understood what they were presenting to this planning commission tonight, they wouldn't even had an opportunity to come here and show you this. And it reminds me of a Joni Mitchell song. You don't know what you've got until it's gone. You're paving over paradise. This is just a bunch of crap.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good evening, Kevin Burns, 2065 Alamanda Drive. I believe most of you on the commission and members of the audience would say that I am probably one of the most well-versed individuals in the city on this particular property. Both before I was the mayor of the city, as the mayor of the city, and after being the mayor of the city. I know the ins and outs of this property, numerous things that have been proposed. I'm one that cannot be accused of being anti-development, because I've appeared before the Planning Commission promoting new development within the city. I am so disappointed and frustrated and saddened that a plan of this childish nature would even make it before the Planning Commission. It is so disappointing after 35 years of saving this property that the residents paid over $30 million a year in bonds. I mean, $30 million over 30 years to pay a bond to save this property. Remember when the original Biscayne Landings came? We had community meetings just for the lease, the competition. And then when the lease was written by our city attorney and the Swerdlow Group, the neighborhood and the community participated. When the site plan was talked about, we had community meetings. We talked about it, and people had their input. And when the lease was signed, we had our input. Moved forward several years, the economy got bad. Even during the worst times of the economy, Boca developers came to my city council, and we worked with them. We adjusted the site plan. We really wanted to save the project, gave them more residential and more commercial space because that's what they said the bank needed. Well, it didn't work out. So the city went out with a new lease. We never got to participate. We never had one say in what the lease contained or couldn't, anything about it. Come forward to this site plan that they've proposed. Not one community outreach meeting. And I remember sitting in the audience a couple weeks ago. Councilman Galvin asked about an item that he thought was still in the lease. What happened to the $2 million for the Oaks guard gates and the pool and the amenities that they were promised but they were screwed out of? They never got. The mayor sat back and said, it wasn't in writing, so it's not being paid. Folks, there's a whole lot of things in this plan tonight that are not in writing. I don't even know why you're going to waste your time for the next hour and a half to hear the pleads of the developer about how great, oh, we're going to get you this, we're going to amend this, we're going to get you this. Folks, there's a letter in here from the school board that's from 2011, but they're going to get you an updated letter. I was just at a meeting with the principal, David Osborne, and he bragged that David Lawrence Elementary, K-8, was at 140 to 150% capacity today, and bragged about it by saying, people want to come to our school. That is before you want to put 4,800 rental units. You all just spent an hour and a half talking about making sure a 48-unit building on 135th Street wasn't rental, yet these folks want you to turn around and let them allow 4,000 rentals. Oh, we're going to build them as condos, but we're going to have them as rental right now? Folks, I'm tired of being screwed over. This is what this is. If we wanted auto malls, we could have done that to 25 years ago to all the dealerships that wanted to be here 25 years ago. If we wanted a surface parking lot for a shopping center, we could have done that 25 years ago. If we wanted an industrial zone, Lee Feldman could have sold it 25 years ago for $100 million, but we stopped it. I'm not against Biscayne Landings building something out there, but folks, if you go back and look at what Aquilina, a Miami architectural firm, a Florida architectural firm has participated, not somebody from Houston or somewhere else that don't know, I don't think, knows the vibes of South Florida. This is auto mall, residential, a crappy looking shopping center. Folks, we can do better. They've submitted better plans on their previous site that was designed by Aquilina and all that other kind of stuff. Yeah, times have changed, but they can do better. I would urge you to just continue this. Don't plan for the lease. You may be told that the city has a lease with the developer, and we got to keep in a timeline with the developer according to the lease. Folks, what you approve tonight is going to last for 99 years. Don't plan to the lease. Plan because you want to be proud. And I know each and every one of you up there take a lot of time and consideration. Don't let this monstrosity be your legacy. Send it back to them. Tell them, come back with a better plan, more realistic. And if you want to, you just told that developer who wants to build 48 units to meet with the community, yet this developer who's building 181 units doesn't have to have the first public meeting and community meeting? Are you kidding me? You've got to be kidding me that we're going to allow this to happen. Who knows what's written in this godforsaken stuff? The school, and what about the 143rd Street? They wanted to build a bridge. The community talked about access to FIU. And I have to say, FIU was at the Arch Creek meeting a couple weeks ago. And they said, we will team up with 135th Street and Arch Creek, FIU, to persuade the developer to help us open up 143rd Street over to FIU. They said that they would help support a surface road. And I made a comment at the meeting, there's no way in heck you'll ever get approval through the environmental approvals to do a surface road. but you probably could get approval for an elevated bridge. And that's what Arch Creek at their homeowners meeting and FIU talked about at the last meeting, that they would work together for that, because that makes sense. Now they're talking about an access road through North Miami Beach and all this other nonsense stuff. And what about the poor residents at the Oaks? The poor residents at the Oaks who are going to have to put up with this. They haven't had the first amenities. They're new. They want their easement, but don't want to help them get their guard gate. Don't want to help them get their pools. Don't want to get them the things that they were promised. Folks, I want to see something built out there. I know this developer can do much better. Their partners out of New Jersey have built some fantastic things in New Jersey. They redeveloped a brownfield, and they really built a great community up there. North Miami should not stand for anything less. We deserve better. And this is an atrocious plan, and I'm disappointed that staff, whether they're under pressure by others and outside forces to get this lease timetable moved forward, I'm appalled that they would make the recommendations that they did. Yes, they might comply with some of the stuff, but the intent of that out there, Mr. Chairman and members of this board, is just so disappointing. It's just 30 years of trying to save that property, and everything we put forward and the efforts of this community just going down the drain. It's atrocious, and I just tongue-tied on this. I might not sound it, but it's just so disappointing. Members, please postpone this, send it back, let them come back with a real plan that North Miami deserves, not this whatever hodgepodge they want to call. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Kevin. All right, who's next? Please state your name and address.
Hi, how you doing? Sergio Silvestre, 14951 Royal Oaks Lane, Biscayne Landing. I'm one of the original owners and tenants there, and I'm a bit disappointed that the developers are proposing to build a car lot right in front of my house, and I know nothing about it. They're putting all this traffic without consulting us, the residents, and the homeowners association at the Oaks. I see that they were planning a community center that was supposed to be somewhere near our residency, but once again, it's all the way in the center of a commercial park somewhere, nowhere near us. It just seems that even though we supported this developer initially in getting this land deal, they've turned their back on us now, and we're not seeing any support. So I want to make sure that the city takes the Oaks into consideration before they support anything else with this developer. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else wishing to speak before the commission on this item? Second call. Anyone else wishing to speak? Final call. Hearing no speakers, the public hearing is closed. Now, ladies and gentlemen of the Planning Commission, we have this condition.
Mr. Chair, as a point of order,
Yes.
please afford, if the applicant desires to do so, an opportunity to rebut or present some, evidence or other information that you may seem relevant.
Applicant can present evidence concerning public hearings or other issues.
Okay, I'll go through some of the items that that I caught through all of that. The first item was the wanting the workshop, and I'm sensitive to that because I'm live in a community that makes changes that I want to give my input as well. We've had workshops on this project throughout the negotiation of the lease and the development of the master plan, as well as all the various details of what the elements of the lease are and what our commitment to not only to build on that site, but also to the community here and the employment of residents and the commitment of dollars to local businesses. All of that was discussed. We've heard comments. We've responded to comments, both from the residents as well as the city staff and some of the councilmen, and we've addressed every one of them. So we've met on this project for over a year with these workshops. I'm not opposed to doing it again. Don't have a problem with it at all. The one substantial difference that you may recognize in this plan from what we developed through these workshops is the addition of the auto dealers. And that was actually it was something that was picked up throughout the negotiations of the lease, because we did have interest from an auto dealer that was given to the city manager when the city still owned the property and didn't have a tenant. So we just kind of picked up on that. And by the way, that certain component on that corner parcel, we do have to share with the city on the proceeds of that auto dealer. So, but that's the only substantial difference. If we want to talk about that, we can certainly do that. The part about hating the residential, I heard at least 2 citizens put detail to what was a massing plan. It's a block. I mean, the detail that they're seeing in these tenement buildings, I didn't see. All I saw was a block that was of multiple stories that could be anything. And the market's going to tell us what that anything is. Right now, we're not willing to jump out there and start building anything residential until we see a little better turn in the market. And you've heard one of the commissioners reference what he's seen in the marketplace. It might be getting close to that time now. But what you saw in that diagram did by no means describe what the detail of that building's going to be, nor whether it's going to be rental or condo. We don't know that yet. The next item is hating the retail. Well, it's, again, I go back to what we did in 5 or more community workshops. This retail has not changed substantially from what our initial master plan, concept plan in the lease is. And if you look at it and compare the two, there's very little change. It was all big box retail. It was all on flat level parking. There was never any rejection of that plan back then. We've gone to the length of starting the leasing negotiations with some of these tenants. We are working with at least 2 nationally known retail builders in identifying what this thing should really look like, who the tenants are, what the leasing terms should be. And they all, in that agreement, have to understand that this layout, in fact, works. And they both support it as about the only thing that we can do on that site today to start building, start producing our required 500,000 square feet of vertical product, start putting some of the city's residents to work, start committing some dollars to this community. That is one of the things that everybody's willing to bank on. Nobody's willing to bank on a residential product of any kind, of a condominium, high-rise, low-rise, giant 3,000 square foot, 1,000 square foot, 750. Nobody's willing to do that right now. So I love the enthusiasm I'm hearing. I wish we could start building that, because that's my specialty. I enjoy that more than anything else, but we can't. The market's not going to support it. You heard the gentleman before us, what he's going through to make something work out of a piece of property he's owned for years. The next item, I don't know, I can't really speak to impressions of the nature of the development, but other than just to say that the school capacity letter, we'll get that. We'll get that between now and council hearing. The council does not have to approve the project without that letter. I understand that. The traffic, we're dealing with the traffic. I alluded to that in the opening statement here. And we're partnering up with people who have been subjected to a major traffic issue that had no part in it, one of which is this city right here. And I feel for you on that, because I live it each and every day, no less than 3 times a day, because I work right there on that corner. So I know what you're going through. We've got to fix it. We need help. We're going to get that help. So, yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. And we have to do it. I could have our traffic engineer come up and speak to that. I don't know if you're willing to go through that tonight. Let me know if you are. Or you can meet with him individually, and he'll tell you what our plans are. Other than that, I'll turn it back over to the commission. And the car lots in front of the homes. If you look at some of the plan sheets there, you'll see we are building significant buffers between where you live and where these car lots are. And in the end of the day, we still have to go through a full architectural review at the staff level and at the city council level. You have ample opportunity to speak to that at that time, to raise your objections, to bring us into conformance, not at this setting. Chair, I turn that back over to you and the commission.
Thank you very much. All right, ladies and gentlemen.
Looking at me. Want me to start? I don't
Go ahead. This time round, Kenny will go to the right.
Sir, would you kindly come back up? My first question is, I remember sitting here in a council meeting and Mr. Swerdlow saying that he was going to take care of the Oaks and we were going to put in a pool and a clubhouse. What happened to that?
Well, at that time, we did have a contract to buy those 160 residential units in those buildings. And part of that agreement was that when we purchased those 160 units, our commitment was to put $2 million into that amenity center and to upgrade some of the exterior of the building that seemed to be kind of getting out of maintenance. That was our commitment then. We went ahead and negotiated a lease with an anticipated closing date of the end of February. What happened at the end of February when we didn't close that? We got the council vote, as which you're all aware of, that put us in, the lease was turned down at the council level. We went about 4 weeks, I might be wrong on the time there, when the mayor resurrected what was effectively a dead negotiation at that time. In the interim period, we had, I think it was $1 million, I might be wrong on that, but it's close to $1 million in deposit on those 160 units. At that point in time, it made no sense to allow that money to go hard when we didn't have a lease. The last piece of the puzzle, and I'll finish this quickly. When we finally did bring the lease back into negotiations and completed on May 23rd, we went back to the owner of those 160 units and said, okay, let's re-up the deal. 2 months have passed, we're ready to re-up the deal, let's go hard on the money and get it done. They raised the price to a point that made it absolutely undoable, if you will, over 25%. So we just couldn't do it.
So in other words, these people that were promised, the bottom line is this. These people were promised that they were going to get a clubhouse and they were going to get a pool, and here again, through the mysteries of business deals, these people get screwed again. And these people get, I bleed for these people. I feel so bad for these people. Then we're going to put now a multi-story bunch of car dealers in front of them. They don't have a pool and they don't have a clubhouse. And then we're supposed to say, hey, that's a good deal, too bad. That's not the way it works. One of the things I learned in the military and when I was a police officer, community police and so forth and so on, and the police chief, is you become a problem solver. These people have a problem. You guys came up here publicly and you said that you were going to help these people. Now, whether the deal went bad on your end or the bank's end or the lender's end or whatever, your obligation was you made a commitment, you should have kept that deal. And you should make it work. Now, you expect me, and maybe my colleagues up here, I don't know how they feel, to go along with this project on a wing and a prayer and say, oh, I'm going to trust you, and these people are still getting screwed out there? I can't do that. Okay? I got some other questions for you. One, I'm reading here on this focus, on page 4, on the real estate advisors. We were promised high-end, beautiful condos out there. People were going to move in with disposable income. Now, what are you telling me here? Well, the multifamily residential component of Biscayne Landings will be designed and built as condominiums. However, based on the current strength of the rental market, residential units will initially be marketed as high-end rentals. Come on. You're going to rent an apartment out, then 10 years later you're going to turn around and sell it as a condo? Who's kidding who here? I got to tell you, it doesn't make sense. You want to address that, please?
Absolutely. One thing we can't control is the economy and the market. That's why we hire people like Craig Worley to tell us what makes sense to build nowadays. And you know what? If Craig was an investor on this project, he would tell you, I'm not putting a dollar into a residential product of any nature today on this site. Will it get better in 2 years? We think so. All signs seem to be pointing in a residential product coming back. Our partner, Richard Lefrak, one of the largest residential builders in the country, he's not ready to start building on this site yet because he still sees what the economy's doing. He's planning what might work. He's talking with architects. How do we lay this out on the grand scheme of things? He's doing that every day. But I have to put his intelligence far above mine in what works in this economy with a residential product, he's not willing to do it yet. So Commissioner, my answer to you is we hire economists to tell us what's working. What you're reading there is what he says is working. His reputation is based on his accuracies. I can't speak to that. That's why we pay them to tell us what they're doing.
Let me ask you this then. How come I see beautiful condos going up in Sunny Isles? I see beautiful condos going up in Aventura. I see beautiful condos going up on Miami Beach, but I see dumps going up over here in North Miami. I'm a little tired of that. I want to see nice projects out there. I want to see people moving in there with disposable income. This city is at the tipping point. You know, it's okay to have workforce housing. It's okay to have rentals. But you have to have a balance. And you have to have people with disposable income to keep your restaurants alive and your stores alive and to pay your taxes and to support city services. And this project isn't going to do it. I was reading the Biscayne Times the other day where you guys are going to come in and you got a company coming in and it's going to be all rentals. Now, I don't know if that's true or false. That was what I read in the magazine. Now, I look at this and I look at these canyons and I go back in history. I go back to the time when I was a kid, and I remember the New York City Housing Authority building projects under Bob Moses, the great builder of New York City. And they end up to be sewers. Okay? I'm not saying this is the way it is today. I remember Cabrini Green when I was up in Chicago. It was built right after World War II by the great Mayor Daley. But his son had the wisdom when he was mayor to rip that stuff down and put up some beautiful things. And the reason that they did that is because they needed a tax base. It wasn't because they didn't care about the working man out there or the workforce out there or the person that didn't have the money to live right, but they realized that they needed a tax base. And this was our dream. This was the thing that was going to save this city. And we were promised by Swerdlow that he was going to build beautiful projects out there. And you know what? I'm looking at something that doesn't make any sense. This, I don't mean to chastise you, but it does not make any sense to me. I'm looking at this. Well, we may have amenities on top of the parking garages. We may have this. We may have that. But in the meantime, you get giving me maybe, coulda, woulda, should. I see of the poor guys who you promised, not you personally, but your organization promised to take care of, and they're still out in the cold. This doesn't make any sense to me. Also, let me ask you a question. How come we went from a 4-star hotel to a 3-star hotel? Are we not entitled to a 4-star hotel? Are we any different? You know, but we don't have the people over here to support a 4-star hotel. Well, I'll tell you why we won't have the people to afford a 4-star hotel. Because you're not building quality stuff out there. How come Donald Trump wouldn't come over here and build? You know, tell me, what do I see? Beautiful things in Bell Harbor, Miami Beach, Surfside, all over, beautiful condos going up, but you're going to give us rental housing. This does not make any sense, and that was not the deal. I'm sorry, sir. Go ahead, please answer if you don't.
Well, I'll respond to a couple of them. I couldn't keep track of every one of them. Please.
I'm sorry. I'm a little hot under the collar right now.
No, but the one. Sorry.
That's right.
Well, the one I'd like to respond to is every one of those 4 communities you just mentioned, Bal Harbors, you know, the ones that are on the ocean, every one of them are exactly that. They're on the ocean. And Richard Lefrak, I don't know how much you keep up with it, but Richard did purchase a hotel, condo, mixed-use project down in Miami Beach, right on the ocean, because we all know they don't make any more oceanfront. We all know if anything's going to come back first in this type of economic climate, it's going to be something on the oceanfront. I wish I could say Biscayne Landing was on the oceanfront, because that would kind of help us in this decision-making process. He did buy the Gansevoort, which is tied to the Roney Plaza. He is building condominiums, and they're renovating, if you will. He's not rebuilding the whole building, but he did see enough promise in oceanfront property to put his money there. And it's a process. He sees that working. He knows that this property is going to work one day, hopefully sooner than later, and he'll put a product there. Now, I didn't see in that display that we just showed you the detail that you're seeing to relegate it to an inferior product. I welcome you to show me, but I don't see an inferior product. I see blocking, massing, and things that you normally see at this level of detail, which is very little. It's a master plan.
Okay.
Now, I want to help you, Commissioner, but I just don't see what you...
Okay. Well, I'll answer your question on page 4 of your focus analysis. Rental apartment complexes ranging from small standalone buildings with few or no amenities to institutional-graded branded projects with 100% units included both garden type and mid-rise buildings. What are you going to build out?
You going back to the economic analysis, sir?
That's in your focus thing
I
on
see.
page 4.
Okay. Well-
What are we building out there? If you're going to tell me we're going to build, look, a lot of those buildings in Aventura aren't on the ocean, or aren't on the bay.
Okay.
Okay? They're right there. I go up to Aventura all the time. They're not on the ocean, but they're going for a good price. We're on a mangrove swamp out there, okay? And you're looking out. You have a beautiful view of the bay. And you have a beautiful view of the ocean if you're going high enough. You don't tell me that we can't build beautiful things out there. This doesn't make any sense. It does not make any sense. Okay? I'm sorry. That's the way I feel about it. It does not make any. And then you got to I look at this thing and you
Can I respond to that,
sir,
Commissioner, please?
one restaurant in the shopping center? What?
One restaurant?
That's what I see here. That's what I read, unless I'm reading this the wrong way.
Well,
I mean, I'm
if
looking
I
at
can
your
respond to
own
the-
allocation of the footprint.
All right.
Okay, well, anyway, I have to, okay, thank you very much. I'm done, sir. Thank
All
you.
All right, thank you, Kenny. All right, Jane, you're next.
Well, very interesting project. During your conversation, you stated that you don't know what's going to be in there. So, do you think the reason why you guys are having such hard times is because you don't know?
I'm having trouble hearing you.
You said you
talking
don't
about
know,
the residential product?
Correct.
Yeah, we don't know because we're not at the point in time where we submit for precise plan approval, where we actually define level of finish, type of product, and those sorts of things. We're here trying to get a conceptual approval at the master plan level that identifies conditional uses that are allowed on the property. And nowhere in there are these conditional uses called out to a level of finish that says they're tenements, they're condos, they're rental, they're nothing. This product doesn't show that. What you're reading, I think maybe there's some confusion here, is we're reading an economic analysis projection of what should work today. But nowhere in this product does it go to that level of detail where it's saying this is rental, this is the iron rail balconies, this is the tile finishes, as opposed to, it's not in here yet, but it will come. And it'll come when we go for precise plan approval, and you'll get your shot at the architecture then. You'll be able to tell us, we don't like this, it's too low of a value, we want you to build something more expensive. This is not the time for that. I can address it, but I don't.
Okay.
There, no way does this document, or can I tell you the answer to that question?
Now, what puzzled me is you have a couple of residents who stated that the initial presentation before coming here today was different than today's presentation. I mean, how do you address that? I mean, one of the residents mentioned that what you guys proposed back then is different than today. Obviously, that's a big concern.
Okay, at the time when we went through the lease negotiations, is that the time you're talking about?
I'm not sure, but I believe that's the time. I'm not sure if it was Kevin or Carol. One of them mentioned that.
Okay, Ken.
What? The initial proposal that the developer had before was substantially different than today. Was that during the negotiation you were talking about?
Carol, you need to.
Well, when the project was
State
first,
your name.
Carol Keys, again. When the project was first proposed to us, I believe we had a whole different concept. On the corner, we had a hotel. We had an ACLF, which is an adult congregate living facility, which I thought was a terrific idea for the people in our city. It happened to be a high-end, upscale adult congregate living facility, like the Palace or the Hyatt. In the middle was going to be some residential. Mr. Swerlo stated that the residential was not going to be built for several years, maybe 7 to 10 years, because the market was not ready for that. The Cherubin brothers also mentioned that they were looking to build possibly a recording studio in the area. It was just a really nice upscale project. There was going to be box retail stores, but with a lot of restaurants. But it just, all of those amenities, the ACLF, the nice hotel on the corner, not stuck in the back, it's just totally different. And there were only a few residential towers, not what we're seeing right now.
All right, thank you. So how do you answer to that?
Okay.
Your presentation.
Well,
and to
number
now?
one, as far as the ALF facilities and senior living, we spoke to people back when we were first formulating that master plan. They since lost interest. They have come back to me in the last month and a half or so. They're still interested in a similar, in the same location on the site, which is right in the area between the corner parcel and the Oaks condominium. And to my understanding, if this conditional use permit is approved, it does not disallow assisted living facilities. But I got to get a stronger commitment from them before I go to the next step, which is precise plan approval. But my understanding is, and I'm talking with them with not only the assumption, but some strong information that assisted living facilities, senior living facilities, independent facilities, as well as skilled nursing facilities are allowed under this current conceptual use. And I would like to be corrected if I'm wrong.
That is correct. Under the Plan Development District, adult living facilities is permitted use.
Okay, now going back to the hotel, yeah, we showed a hotel on the corner because it made sense then. We thought we could not get a 4-star hotel chain to even talk to us about coming here. They said, come see us when you're built out, when you're built out. And we do have a partner in our operation, Millennium Group. That is one of their responsibilities and their entitlements is to build a hotel on this site. They came back and told us a 3-star hotel is who we can talk to. They're the ones interested in coming here, and they're talking to a few of them. But right now, it's still only in the talking stage, and again, it's supported by when you get the site built out. So I said, well, where do you want them to be? Do you want to hold up the production on the corner parcel when that's the one that the city staff came to us that the auto dealer was interested in? Do you want to hold that back or blow that guy off until you finally get the hotel deal together, or do you want to take another site? They took another site, which is right where you see it, where 143rd Street comes in. That's what they wanted. So that answers the ALF or ACLF, or whatever that is, the senior living and the hotel. Now, Carol, you had one other use there that you saw in the last one. Recording studio. Okay, now, it's also my understanding that a recording studio is allowed within this current conceptual master plan. And again, I asked the city attorney and staff to correct me if I'm wrong.
That is correct. That is a permitted use. It's as well as TV, radio/radio.
Okay, so, and one of our partners is in the broadcasting business as well. That's the Millennium Group. And that would be allowed to go in that commercial area, the way I understand it, or an area immediately to the north of there. We can still do that with this conceptual master plan approval. And we're not going to say no to any interested tenants that want to come to this site until we talk to them, until we see, does it make economic sense? Is it something that the city would like to have there? We talked with staff about the senior living facilities 6 weeks ago, and they're most interested in it, and we are too. We're talking to 2 different senior living people that are very successful. One of them owns 3 other facilities right here in this city. So that's still alive. And this does not preclude us from bringing it to the site.
Now, I mean, I don't blame you for the way the economy has gone in the past, but based on my observation, I do see that the economy is improving. Things are changing. Therefore, I honestly think that you guys can do better with such beautiful property. You guys can do better. That's my take on that.
Then I would like nothing better to come back to you within the next 3 months with a precise plan approval package showing you a high-end luxury living condominium at whatever size the market will allow us to sell it at and make a profit. That's what we're in the business for. We're not in the business to make double profits or triple profits, but we're definitely not in the business to build something to lose money, and the city wouldn't participate in a loss anyway. They would participate well in a profitable venture.
Would you be willing to meet with the community again and to hopefully iron out some of the issues and to perhaps get more information as to what is needed?
I can meet any time from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. during the work day. I'll meet on weekends. I'll meet on work day nights. It can start tomorrow. It can start tonight. To me, it's
I mean,
not
that's
fun.
my
That's
opinion,
not
to
committed
really
I
meet
am
with
to
the
this, by
community
the
and see
way.
what is needed in the area. Because
Sir?
I think that you guys should meet with the community and see what can be done
Push
better.
this back.
'Cause
I'm not opposed to doing that, sir, and I will do that between now and council time. I'll do that from now going forward. I'll continue the same effort we started a year and a half ago. Not afraid of that at all. Would enjoy it, in fact.
Okay, because there's a lot of broken promises, as you can see. And
one of them, I don't know if we're going to be able to get over.
Well, you can't fix everything, but I do think we can do better.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Might just point out one. Sir, when I talked about the restaurant that was on Exhibit B, on page 1, what was going to go to the city council as far as the ordinance, and it says here a 9,880 square foot restaurant.
Okay.
And that led me to believe that was going to be just one restaurant on the site, okay? Or you have 202,760 square feet auto mall, 7.2 acre active park, so forth and so on. It's right in that.
Okay, so I think I know where you're talking about,
Okay.
and that's also the area where the assisted living facility provider was going to do this. But
And,
if I may, Commissioner, can I direct you back to the commercial component?
yes, sir.
And it's on, I'm looking on page 6. Right under the word commercial, those string of stores that sit in the center of that parking lot, that's what we
You said
had
page
intended
6,
for
sir? I'm
those.
sorry, let me go back there.
So you can even go to 7, it gives you a little better look at it. Page 7 of the submittal package, okay?
I don't. I just brought that up because this is what I've been reading here, and
Yes, sir, and that we by no means ever intended to only have one restaurant. Restaurants, by the way, pay the highest rent, highest lease payments come from your restaurants. Where the other big box guys are in the 20s, 25s, restaurants are pushing $50 to $70 a square foot. So we want as many as we can bring here that's going to be sustainable.
okay. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Mr. Castor, you're finished with your comments? All right, thank you. Ms. Schwartzbaum, I'll hold you for last.
Sure.
Ms. Schwartzbaum.
No.
It's your call.
I'll be brief. Yeah, I guess it's very startling to see this plan up on the big screen. It's not what I envisioned it was going to be. It's very shocking and startling to see the amount of auto dealerships there. The way the buildings are juxtaposed, I can't even imagine what the traffic study could be. And I don't know that we have enough preparation tonight. It seems like there's so much more work here to do before we can make some kind of decision. You know, my office is on the west side of 151st Street, and you can't really even get from the Publix to that intersection at 3 o'clock. It takes 15 or 20 minutes. So I don't know if we're out of line to talk about the traffic tonight, if that needs to be done, if that's a big piece of this, but we seem far away to me to be able to make an educated decision here. And I will pass it to the architect to...
Mr. Prevotel, and I believe Ms. Schwartzbaum has ceded her time to you, sir.
Thank you very much.
You may have your bite of the apple.
If I may ask through the chair to the Commissioner Schwartzbaum, I did bring our traffic guy here. If you want to discuss it tonight, we can. He has produced a preliminary plan showing additional lanes going in each direction on 151st Street, coming from from east to west and west to east. He's also showed additional turning lanes on Biscayne Boulevard that are necessary, going again north to south and south to north. And all of these improvements are necessary, and we are committed to build those improvements through the course of this project, and as they're needed, as indicated by the traffic studies that your council and staff and yourselves will review and approve. And we're not trying to get out of that commitment, because you have to understand the success of this project depends on our tenants being able to get their customers in and out, on our residents being able to come in and out of their homes without, with some sensible reason of what does not amount to an abnormal delay. And what you're seeing out there, again, I experience it at least 3 times a day because my office is right on that corner. That is unreasonable delay. The level of service of that intersection has been labeled as an F by 2 separate consulting authorities, one of which we have in this room. Another one is doing a study for either FIU or one of the other facilities looking at that. We do have people engaged to approach Florida Department of Transportation, have had some preliminary discussions with them to contribute toward this improvement that they in fact are responsible for some of. Miami-Dade County is also interested in improving that intersection because they are responsible for some of those impacts that you've experienced over the last 5 or 6 years. We want them to contribute their fair share, which we see to be building that intersection to an acceptable level of service as it is today with the current traffic load before we put one auto mall, before we put one retail tenant, before we put one residential unit or one restaurant on that site. I expect to hold them to their responsibility of improving the intersection to accept the load that they in fact imposed on it, and that will help you, it'll help us, and we will contribute our share to then improve it to the next level to accept the load we're going to impose on it. I'm sorry to cut you off, Commissioner, but I did want to make sure that Commissioner Schwartzbaum understood that.
I can't help but think of the phrase, we reap what we sow here in North Miami, because we seem to pay attention to these small details. You know, somebody wants to put a tiki hut someplace in their backyard or whatever, and it's 2 feet closer and it's 3 feet high, and what does a doorknob look like? And here it is, we have this massive project. And what will happen is, in our city, we have this, or maybe it's human nature, we have this inability to deal with the large scale of things. We have, we can understand the asteroid flying in, but we don't really understand the billions of light years that the universe is, and such as no way of comprehending it. Unfortunately, we can comprehend the tiki hut and criticize that person and beat it to death for, you know, being that few feet in. But here we have this major project. We pay attention to the little dripping faucet when in fact we have a tsunami here. I'm not a planner. I'm not a full-time planner. I'm not even practicing full-time at this time, doing other property management things and such. But I do have an interest in design and planning. I happen to have a graduate degree, an Ivy League graduate degree in urban design. I've probably been to 600 or so destinations around the world in 60 countries. And have spent 20 years in Manhattan going to dozens, probably hundreds of presentations on design, the built environment. All of this is just, I'm just trying to demonstrate that I have an interest in our built environment, but in no way profess to be an expert, in no way. I'd like, if I may though, if you'll indulge me, to share a couple images. I don't have the big screen. I'm a lowly board member, but I'm going to show a couple images and just to refresh people, because we've now talked for a while, and maybe they don't, people, if anybody's watching, or the people in the audience may not recall what the project is. But, and this is a test to see if this will work. Here's the proposed project. Can we get in there? Mm-hmm. Proposed project. Okay. And I'm going to go to another piece. Show another piece of paper. And here's small scale. Can that be seen? I'm sorry I don't have this done. I'm sure I don't have it in electronic data form. You may recognize that. Some people may. I'll show another sheet from the project. Another sheet from the project. And another small piece. Another sheet from the project. another example of, they're good, of housing.
Would you identify your small prints for the record?
I will in a second, if I
Right.
just, and we, project again. These are all different views of the project. And after this piece, I have one after that. Can you see that? Quite make that out? And I'll just skip to the last page here. So we're all refreshed now on the project. And there's this one. Okay. These are just some things. Like, I only got the binder yesterday, but these are some things that kind of just came to mind. And the first one is Le Corbusier's 1925 plan of the Voisin plan, where it was scheduled to, or the proposal was to eliminate a massive section of Paris and implement this regular grid of high-rise blocks and other blocks around, obliterating the character of that neighborhood. As talented as he was also very serious about this project. And this led to urban development, particularly in the United States, in years to follow, which brings up this project. This is one of those projects. We just showed 1925. This one is from the post-war 1940s. This is Stuyvesant Town in New York. And this is like many of the projects. And you might be able to see a similarity to what's been proposed and what we have in the projects. This is one of many that took place around the country. This is kind of picturesque. I mean, we've got a lot of trees, a little bit of contours and such, a little more open space than we're planning at Biscayne Landing. This is Soviet era block-style housing. And even this seems to be a little bit more appealing. This, for those people who have come from up north, this is Co-op City of the 1960s. Sorry, let's try to get in there. Co-op City in the Bronx in New York, which they basically got a site, swamp site, and they sprinkled construction on it, and the horror grew from there. And even this has more open space, and I find it hard to believe, but probably more character than what we're proposing at the moment, Biscayne Landing. This last one is not chronologically in order, because this was built in the mid-1950s. And we can take a good close-up on that, hopefully. This one looks a lot like the blocks that we're proposing. Does anybody recognize this? This is in St. Louis in the mid-1950s. This is Pruitt-Igoe. It was built in the 1950s, and it replaced the slum-type land around the projects. All the light buildings are the 17, 18 or so buildings, high-rise, mid-rise buildings in the St. Louis neighborhood. So they cleared out in an urban renovation, urban renewal mode. They cleared out the really probably seedy area, and they replaced it with this housing. 20 years later, every building was taken down. So by 1976, every building was down. And this actually had a purpose, because it replaced the slum-like housing that was there before. They actually had a market. All those people around there, they could market to those people and put them in this housing, and that's what happened, and the thing collapsed on its own weight, essentially. And the only resolution was to, hard to believe, but was to destroy the entire site. It took a few years to take down, but they took them down one by one. My fear is that, as I've said before, in the city we have all this emphasis on, and the developers get it, all this emphasis on low-cost housing, low-income housing and such, which is fine, and it should be in place. There's a place for it, and there's a measure for it. And we keep going, you know, month after month, year after year, and we seem to get more and more low-cost housing. And I've said this many times in public, that with the economy going down, you know, probably 90% of our city became low-income type housing, yet we keep on pushing for this. I gotta hold this up again and ask our development team, exactly which apartment do you want to live in? Who here wants to live in something like this? Can you really imagine yourself in one of these locations? You know, kudos to the consultants who put together a nice glossy publication, and the traffic consultant, which I'm sure it works, although none of us will probably understand it as well worked as it is. We won't be able to ferret out the details on that. But, and this is, and I say that sincerely to the consultants who put this together, that this actually does work and can work, that there are streets and there are parking lots and buildings and there's circulation and it all works. The question is, when you step back, why would you want to do this? I do know, I do appreciate that this is just a massing study, and I do understand that the details of the structures and such will not be the same. And actually that's partially a fear, because right now it has a sort of a consistency, and there's a, you know, a little bit of acceptance in the repetition and the consistency. But the reality is it'll be built not necessarily so consistent, which people would find to be difficult and hard to take, but it'll also be the same sort of blocks, approximating that shape, but probably in that position. And they'll get decorated different. And this one will have this decoration, and this will have this decoration, this elaboration. And it'll just be a whole series of kind of decorated blocks on what is already a very uninspired plan. That is, unless the inspiration comes from internment camps in the mid-early 20th century, because that's sort of what it is. There's a little effort to have like a central boulevard at one point, but there's the illusion that these rooftop decks are open spaces. They're really not. It's just buildings bridged by parking lot after parking lot after parking lot. We have a retail, as was pointed out. It's not even late 20th century retail. This is at best mid-20th century retail, at very best. We have examples in the Miami area of better examples of, and more inspiring examples of America Park and such that have a little bit more character. You don't have to go too far to find something that's a little bit more inspired. And unfortunately, this plan, although it works, there's no, and I've never referred to something like this before. I don't really use the word, but there's no soul. There's no magic to this. There's no, for lack of better, there's no love to this plan. And this is gonna pass. This is gonna probably go through this board and gonna go through the council, and that's the way it is, Miami, because everything seems to get through, right? It all seems to get through. But this is really more for the development team. You have 180 plus acres. This is like in a major metropolitan area. This is a world-class opportunity to do something that's just knocking out dynamite, not absolute squeeze every penny out of the damn thing. And because we're in North Miami, we'll do that, and we'll take advantage of things. But you have a chance to do something that's really stellar. Really, really stellar. I mean, you're not directly on the water, but you're on a preserve. You have views out to the water. There are so many opportunities. There's a lot of land to work with. And for some reason, it just doesn't come together. When some of us go down Collins Avenue, and you get to a point, the mid-beach section, I guess it would be called, and you go, wow, who is living in these apartments that look across to another apartment? Why would they do that? And you go, wow, well, they're all the way down here in sunny Florida, and they're doing that. Well, maybe they came from the north where they looked 10 feet away, and now they look, 100 feet away into the neighbor's window. But even those apartments, they're either on, most of them, many of them are, they're within walking distance, they're on the ocean, or they're on the canal side, or the bay side, or they have a view of the city. And even that looks, wow, really great. Who is going to occupy these spaces that look into each other, that or it's just really unbridled urbanism, and not as in like new urbanism like Delaney and Elizabeth Plater-Zyberk or something like that, which would behoove all of us to look at for creating outdoor spaces and the environment. Or there are so many people that we could have gone to, or you still may go to get something that has an enriched character, something that has a sense of place, not just spaces, but a sense of place, a sense of procession, access, views, containment, some celebration of something. This is it just reminds me of East Bloc mentality that they're trying to take down as soon as possible. Why would we propose this? And I think the exercise of going through this is fine, and it probably should have been done. It shows how much merit can we put in this 180-acre parcel. But after that was done, it really should never have been presented to us. It should have said, this is what we could have done, and look at this is so much better of what we're really going to propose and what we're going to do. Because I can't imagine anybody else. I can't imagine the marketing of this. We're in an area where people can look at Brickell Avenue, they can look at South Beach. I mean, Aventura is a case where, and again, none of these places are perfect, but that's a case where they started with just about nothing. There was nothing there 50 years ago, and they've come up with something that's rather has a certain scale to it, has a certain relationship, a certain use of the parks, materials. There's a certain quality there. It breaks down in so many ways. It has a sense of security. Believe it or not, it even has sort of a sense of privacy as much as it does have large buildings. We're missing all of that from this. It just seems like we're completely missing the point. And I've brought this up previously too on other occasions. There's the city of Columbus, Indiana, and right after the Second World War, Cummins Engine, which is headquartered there, said, "Hey, we're headquartered here. We have employees here. We're here for the long run. Let's do something nice in our community." And they sponsored a program where the company itself, if there was to be a public project built, or even sometimes private projects, even religious projects, that the company would say, hey, we'll cover the design fees if you choose from this pool of talent. And they had this top shelf offering of designers, particularly in the U.S., and may have changed in recent years, but along the U.S., and it starts out in 1949 with the Finnish-born American architect Hillel Saarinen designing a church. And thereafter, just about every year, Cummins Engine sponsors something, and their schools, and their medical facilities, their steam plant, their fire departments, their libraries, everything is designed by someone that's recognized, and almost every building is, wow, let's go visit that building. It's a unique experience in the country, and they still perpetuate this. Even the most mundane of buildings has some design attention to it. We just let something slide with a water treatment plant, and nobody really cares. It's the $10 million, $20 million water project. We can't comprehend it. Like we can comprehend the drip, but we can't comprehend the tsunami. And maybe we're not paying attention to that, but let's hope we can pay attention to this, because it's really a great opportunity for this development team to do something that, you know, it will be, not only will it be aesthetically pleasing and proud for our community, but it'll be even more fruitful for you economically. Because I don't know how much lipstick you can put on this thing, but it's still going to be a pig in the end. It really is. It really is. And you really have a chance to do something fantastic. I'm sure I talked more than my share. Just a thought.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening, and I wish you the best with it.
Thank you, Mr. Prevotel. Well, I suppose it comes my turn now to have a go at this. I must say I'm not going to wax as eloquently as some of our other commissioners have. But I've been here for 23 years, and I'm nearly speechless. This commercial plan reminds me of the 79th Street Shopping Center that I went to as a child. It was elegant for its time, 40 or 50 years ago. Today, I drive by and can't wait to see them tear it down. It got replaced, if you will, by the Northside Shopping Center. And then in its time, it got replaced by the Aventura Mall. And apparently, somewhere between 79th Street and Aventura, we've lost generations of architectural students. Apparently, there's something wrong with our schools. There must be. I don't know how else to account for such a god-awful design presentation. I could see a first-year architectural student who's never gone beyond his front door submitting this as his dream of a shopping area. But, you know, I traveled a lot now at my old age. Yes, I still get to take those vacations. And I've been to Europe. And I've been to cities in this country. And I've been to cities in South America. And I've seen real creativity in architecture and design. And I had great hopes with all the promises that Michael Swerdlow gave us many times over. I saw great hopes for signature buildings here. I can't imagine where this came from. I would be so embarrassed if I were the architectural firm to put my name on this. 50 years ago, this would have been wonderful. But times have changed, and clearly the firm is not up to the task, and gracefully, perhaps they should step aside. The residential component. I looked at this and I thought to myself, 4,000 and some odd units. Where are the children going to play? Where were the soccer fields that were promised? Where's the outdoor recreation? We get a little 7.5-acre park off on the far end of the commercial. As a parent, do I want my children crossing these streets and commercial areas to get to a park that's so inaccessible that I would have to hold their hand and take them there? I don't think so. This is incredibly disappointing. I wouldn't know what to compare your conceptual designs on the residential units to. Certainly nothing very graceful. I can't say that I subscribe to Architectural Digest, but clearly whoever designed this never heard of the magazine. And then we get to the auto mall. Well, you know, just last month was the plan to, we've sold the corner for $15 million for the Audi dealership. And the Audi dealership has apparently married and had children. And I see we've gone from one signature dealership to 4. Oh, and 2 small restaurants that are so far removed from the commercial district, I can't imagine that anybody would go there. I would have put the restaurants at least in the commercial district. Maybe you might get a bar to be open at night. That might be of some help. You've apparently gone from one auto dealership to a fantasy vision of 4. And, you know, every time a builder comes to me and says, oh, it's absolutely, we've crunched the numbers, this is the only way this is going to work, I'm inclined to say, you know, if that's your final offer, we don't need to do it. You could twist my arm on more than one auto dealership. I'd be willing to consider that, but not 4. I think your easternmost auto dealership with true restaurants, that ought to be left as green space and recreation. Make that part of a better entranceway. And I'm not immune to the history of this place. Swerdlow sold his interest for $185 million and walked away a few years back. So he got his money right up front. Then he comes back in and gets another deal, and now he's selling off these parcels for millions of dollars per location. And we can't find money to build a clubhouse and swimming pool for the Oakwood condominium units? There's something radically wrong with this deal. It does smell in every way, shape, and form. And I suppose in order to consider this, I have to take a look at these issues and tell you where I take issue on required findings. And I guess I would go to number 4 and say the physical design of the proposed planned development and manner in which said design does or does not make adequate provision for public services, provide adequate control of traffic, provide for and protect designated common open areas, and further the amenities of light and air, recreation, and visual enjoyment. I don't think this meets any of the conditions set up in item 4. This is just greed personified to the loss of the city of North Miami. This is terrible. Absolutely terrible. I should think that graduate students from the UM School of Architecture could have been more creative. At least give us a signature building for all of this. Something that would stand out. There's nothing that stands out in this. There's nothing that makes me even inclined to want to go visit this area. You know, if I want an auto mall, I'll go to Lexus of North Miami. I think that's as big as I want to see them get. Nice, beautiful, first-class facility, but I don't want 5 of them. People in Oakwood condos, my God, their property values would plummet if they were stuck across the street from these auto malls. And the nice part about urban planning is nobody's ever responsible. Oh, none at all. We've so condensed urban planning and development into such small, segmented parcels that we become focused on one corner, one little piece, and we lose sight of the big plan. In this case, I think the big plan is a dismal failure. The physical design of the proposed plan development and the manner in which said design does not make adequate provision for the public services. 4,000 some odd housing units and not a pip for education. The local elementary school is already 140% over capacity. What are we thinking of here? Clearly, we're not thinking of the public services. It doesn't make adequate provision for vehicular traffic. Yes, I agree, 151st Street's a disaster. That needs to be a 6-lane road at least. Maybe 8 by the time we get done with all this. But it's just, you know, talking about it and getting it done is going to be 2 different issues here. I don't say where we've protected common areas and furthered the amenities of light, air, recreation, and visual enjoyment. We've paved over every square foot of this that we could possibly imagine, or we propose to pave over every square foot of this that we could possibly imagine. There are far more creative ways to develop what piddly amount of commercial property you're planning here. There aren't that many retail stores. And needless to say, people who enjoy open-air shopping aren't particularly going to enjoy the smells of the water and sewer plant when the wind blows from north to south. It's distinctly unpleasant. But of course, I realize you're going to be long gone before you get to that. I'm very disappointed in this. I find this is completely without merit at this level. I understand the city council has all of these contractual commitments they have to comply with. But you know what? That's what architects get paid to do. They get paid to meet deadlines, and they get paid to meet community standards. This fits a community standard for maybe the post-World War II era, maybe 1950s. I cannot see this meeting community standards here in the first quarter of the 21st century, because that's what we're building, a development that will take us through the first quarter of the 21st century. I just don't see that in this plan. I don't see the vision. The greed, yes. The profit, yes. I don't see the vision. I don't see the grassroots commitments. I see a long, long string of broken promises that go back 20 years. And this fails to address any of those issues at any point in time. I have nothing further to say on this. The chair will call for a motion. Bear in mind, gentlemen, whichever way you choose to move on this point.
If the chair would allow, I would like to...
yes, we'll allow you one more rebuttal.
As far as the conditions that you went through that said that this plan does not meet, it's my understanding that the conditions have to be met before this goes to the next level of approval, that the conditions are in fact in addition to this plan. And please correct me, Sir Attorney, if I'm wrong.
The conditions that you're alluding to, sir, are which?
Are the ones, the recommendations of the from the staff to the council to be approved along with the resolution? No, did I miss that?
No, those the 14 or so conditions that you
the
are on the
ones
list.
that the chair was going through, that saying that this plan
No, that's
clearly
not what
does
the chair.
meet.
No, that's not what the chair was addressing. He was not addressing those conditions. He was addressing the conditions, the required findings under the Plan Development District Code.
Okay.
So
understood.
it's completely, separate from, they're required to, whether they approve or disapprove, they're required to provide a reason, fact-finding reasons as to why, justifying their decision.
Thank
It's got
you.
nothing
Please
to do.
proceed, sir.
Yes.
All right, ladies and gentlemen
Could
of
I
the
just
commission.
could I just add a
Excuse
thought?
me?
Yeah, the two towers that exist now, I don't know if our community is even so crazy about that.
Wouldn't it be
But the new plan, it seems that the two towers out of this entire plan are the superior element in the entire plan. and I'd like to switch that around and as a target say, wow, those really weren't such a successful project, and we've got to be able to get that as a minimum standard.
Well, as I understand, I'm sorry.
And
did I
yet,
interrupt you?
it just they're looking good to me right now. I come here, and and every time I pass by, I go, "My God, what a missed opportunity!" And it looks so institutional, and it was done on a budget and such, and that's the way things are done, I guess.
Commissioner, if I may
that
be
looks
so bold.
that looks like a more desirable space in that little corner than everything else that's going on, and it's. I mean, it makes you want to run down the street like screaming somehow.
This whole project is a missed opportunity. Let's get a motion. On the floor,
and
gentlemen.
but it really it really needs to start with a much better plan. It's the circulation plan that'll define your outdoor spaces, that will give it some life, and it starts on the ground plane and the asphalt and what you're going to carve in there, and then build up from there. Not just taking, somebody had like a bag of blocks and they threw them on there. And that's really not the approach that should be taken. It's great for cramming in those blocks onto that space.
Think of it as condos added to the Oakwood Plaza.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But a great, it would really, if this could start with a great circulation plan that would have a public square, place you'd actually want to go, not just on your way and pass by it. Let's quickly get through here because we can't stand it to get to where we have to go. Someplace to go, wow, that's a nice space. This is a nice transition. This is a nice curve. This is a nice vista. All of that starts on the ground plane, and then you can grow the buildings from there, the massing from there.
Yes,
and it'll complement each other. And the buildings will have better views.
You mentioned it, the absence of a public square within the residential unit.
Everything is sort of residual. It's like thrown to the side. The community center is like a leftover space to the outside.
Every aspect of...
It's not cradled and defined. It's just a remnant, and it's the same way the the shopping mall really looks like, with all the asphalt, the paving and stuff, it just looks like we were, you know, we had to adopt this thing because we had to. This doesn't look like anything that someone would choose to do.
You know,
it's not even, okay.
If I may, you know, a public square, a large public square in the center of the residential component, with a community center anchoring one end, maybe a restaurant on the other end, and a large public gathering place. If we've learned nothing else from urban development in the last 30 years, it's the importance of public squares and open spaces. And we have taken all the common elements that would have made it work, and we've thrown them to the four corners on this project. Very disappointed, but we need a motion. Let's get something on the table.
Well, are we going to ask them to come back with a better plan, or are we going to reject this one? Have them come back and
Well, the final,
well, we know the final, but what are the options for this commission tonight?
well, the options are stated in section 4-402.
Very clear. There's nobody in favor of
The
this.
Planning Commission shall recommend to the City Council the approval with modifications or denial of the plan. So I take shall to be a mandatory provision as opposed to a permissive. I would suppose that it doesn't prohibit continuance. I don't know if this is something that the applicant would desire to do, but obviously it's something that can be entertained by this board. Otherwise, you are to approve or disapprove, or approve with modifications in accordance with 4-402.
If I hear the commissions correctly, we would recommend denial if this could not be sent back. That's just the way I'm looking at the votes up here. This wouldn't pass.
Yep.
So it's not going to pass if we do it that way. You've got one chance. You want to go back and redraw it, that's good. You don't, then we'll recommend, I think, a denial, and you know we'll count the votes because it is a quasi-judicial hearing. I just don't find this as meeting the design elements that it should have.
Okay, well, I think we've all heard the exceptions taken by the commission, as well as some of the members of the audience. I believe we can address each and every one of them in such a way as it makes sense that we can continue this. We'll agree to that if that's what I'm hearing being offered here, and we'll come back with something that is more amenable to being voted on and approved.
In your estimation, would continuance, would it work a detriment to the schedules already provided?
It would in one aspect, and that is the submittal of the spine road, which is effectively provides the continuity through the site for traffic. It would, the sooner we get that done, the sooner it would alleviate some of the problems we're having on 151st Street. But for whatever that's worth, that's our phase one of this. If we could be allowed to go ahead to council with the design of the spine road and go to building permit while we are redesigning the specific elements that you've taken exception to, particularly to the residential units, a number of auto malls. Those are the two biggest things I see, and the overall design of retail center is a big one. If I hear you right, though, you're not willing to entertain that. So I'll take that to the partners and see.
The spine road would be 151st Street, right?
It's 151st Street traveling to
all the way back
south and connecting to 143rd. That's the spine road.
Mr. Chair, if I could add just a point of information. The spine road is listed as phase one in the master plan schedule. In order to get to phase one, you would need an approved conceptual master plan, which is what you're reviewing right now.
And
so
we're not ready to
without
do that.
a master
So-
plan approval, you really just can't move on to phase one or any other phase.
In mentioning 151st Street, may I add, that's the main access to a really nice academic campus. We have FIU at the end and access to the water. We have a high school. We have a elementary school. To sort of, to rather than celebrate that and make it something a little bit more academic or maybe a little natural. So I know it's a very valuable piece of land on that corner, and I wish the city didn't give it. We should have had that as forever green for a couple acres, and that opportunity, like most others around here, is gone, and we just don't capitalize on these things, and we're our own worst enemy. That said, though, wouldn't it be nice if whatever is proposed there somehow complements the academic corridor that is sort of in keeping in character with that? That would be really wonderful, and it would sort of respect those institutions and all the students and such that have to go there. Those are students of our North Miami community, and to sort of, as if we don't get dragged up and down enough, and now we're the city of car dealerships and asphalt, to drag it through more of that. We get enough of that. Maybe this can be a little bit of an oasis, a little bit of a gateway into something that is a nice academic community.
Yes, sir. We
Thank you.
agree with that. We've already spoken to FIU on at least 2 previous occasions to include them in the design of whatever that entry element is at that corridor. We're going to work hand in hand, see the designs of the features themselves are, coincides with what we have, so it's one continuous entryway.
And I know it's not economically sound, but boy, to have between all the congestion of Biscayne Boulevard, to have a neutral zone, a DMZ of green before you get into there, would certainly be a very appreciated
All right. Well,
element.
I think we've made that point, but we've got to bring this to a close. We need an agreement either for continuance or we vote this as a denial now.
Yeah, I agree to continue and come back with something that's more amenable to the objections I've heard today.
And again, without the condition of the spine road, as you indicated, because that would obviously require the approval of the conditional use permit.
I understand that.
So basically, it's, we are at in the same manner as we entered this evening.
So we're stagnant until the next submittal.
Yeah, I mean, you've heard the issues.
Yes.
From both the public and members of the commissioners.
Right.
And they're offering you an opportunity to address those issues via workshop.
I'm grateful
outreach.
for that. Yeah, absolutely.
Otherwise, I think you feel what the vote's going to be like. So I leave it to this commission, you and the commission, the parties here to make a decision.
We now need a motion to...
Mr. Chairman, may I?
You can,
for
was there a
continuance.
motion previously? I think there was a motion.
We called for one, we hadn't quite gotten there.
Just withdraw whoever made the motion.
No, I don't know.
withdraw the
I don't know.
motion.
I
If there
didn't
was
make a
one.
We didn't get a
We didn't
motion.
make a
Okay,
motion.
then
we need a
you
motion to
can
resubmit?
entertain continuance to, I guess, the next commission meeting, which would be.
Or when they're ready. 'Cause-
Yeah, when
Well,
you're ready.
again,
Right, we're
within
through the normal submittal process.
you have to,
That's fine.
within the constraints of the lease agreement.
May I just bring something up?
Sure.
My big concern is I don't want to see substandard housing out there, okay? I want to see something nice. I want people to move in with disposable income. This workforce housing has a place, but the city is teetering. We're on a balance. We need people with disposable income. You have some beautiful land out there to build some beautiful things. And I don't want to hear this nonsense that, we can't do this. The market doesn't call for this, like the first candidate that was here, with his building down there with 950 square feet. I see beautiful developments going up all over this county. And God darn it, I'm sick and tired. I'm sick and tired of being treated second class. I want to see beautiful buildings out there, not garbage. And if you're going to bring back something again that you brought us today, it's not going to fly.
Could I follow on that? That's a very good point. If we put something substandard in up front, then everything to follow will probably be substandard. You're
not gonna fly.
You're not going to be able to draw people on the high end or people, of better means. But if you go a little bit deeper and make a little bit more effort on something that is, wow, that's a great starting point, then it'll bring people in. You'll get the attention of the community and South Florida. Maybe people will take an interest in it, which will then allow you to, wow, surprise, we can do more better buildings on what will be a good plan. But it's not going to start with something substandard to begin with. It's aiming for defeat that way. It's for collapsing under its own weight.
Understood.
And that's why I feel you've seen the sentiment tonight. We're just the tip of the iceberg. The community, and I've been speaking to people out there, they are fuming. They are absolutely fuming at what's going on over there. You might not hear it at the council meeting, but the people are really upset. And I can guarantee you, if you come back with a substandard this place will be packed.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Have you guys thought about putting like a tennis court out there or something like that?
Do we need a motion now to grant a continuance?
I'm
A
sorry.
motion to continue?
Yes, I want to make certain that Mr. Tillman, understands. So, you could either take the vote and run to council, or agree to continue. I just want to make that crystal clear. You're entitled to a vote if you so decide.
Okay. Just because I'm not a lawyer and I'm not really crystal clear how this process works, if I get a no vote, I can still go to council. Am I hearing you correct?
Yes, absolutely. And the recommendation would be to deny.
Yeah.
The recommendation of this board
I
to
understand.
council.
And council will be looking at a recommendation to deny a submittal I'm taking to them. That doesn't sound like a great option to me. Let's go with the continuance. We'll come back with something. We'll do some workshops.
All right, then on stipulation of the applicant, the chair will entertain a motion to continue this.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion's continued. Thank you very much for the presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time and attention. All right, at this time, the next Planning Commission meeting is scheduled tentatively for April the 2nd.
Kevin, let's bring up at the next planning commission meeting this, we have the issue on the parking garages. Let's not do it now, let's just push
Yeah.
that off to the next meeting.
All right, can we get the parking garages item put on the agenda for next month? You've got the study in here.
Yeah.
We'd like to actually put that on the agenda. Parking garage standards, okay? All right, our next meeting is set for the April 2nd. Please mark your calendars. And we'll see what comes in the door at that time.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Planning Commission, thank you very much for your time and attention. This meeting is adjourned.